blessings to those who come. This is Pesach Sherbo live from Sfat, Israel, with Terry Hayes, our co-host, and Thomas is here, Scotty Helton, Chrissy, David Chadwick, good to see you, another guy around Chattanooga, Martha, Devorah, Veronica, and Hilario, good to see you. Don't forget to use the chat room if you want to ask questions and stuff. We kind of watch it in case of some questions. Thank you for being with us. Today is the 5th day of March in the year 2020, and it's 3:04 in the morning where I am, and you guys know what time it is where you are. It's also the 9th of the month of Adar, the Hebrew month of Adar, and we're so glad that you're here with us. And I want to talk about a few things this morning. I'm going to start with Corona. I want to start with the coronavirus. It's kind of panicking the world right now. And, you know, last night, the chief rabbi of Israel got on TV and announced that we have to the Jews here have to start taking a few little precautions. And one of the things that a Jew does when we go through the entranceway to a house or to a place of worship or anything like that, there's a mezuzah on the door. And we reach up, put our hands to our mouth, touch it, and put our hands back on our mouth. He said, don't do it anymore. Don't do that. No shaking of hands. Don't shake hands. You can go like this, you know, or something like that, but don't shake hands. Yeah, you go like, okay, there you go. Go like that. They're also, when the Torah scroll comes out of the ark, the closet in each synagogue, usually go up, same thing, touch it. Not for now. And they're going to institute some other things already here in Israel. A lot of cities have canceled their Purim celebrations. In Halon, Israel, there's a parade that's done every year. Jews from all over the world would come and watch. It's called Until You Don't Know Parade. I'll explain that later. But it's a huge hit with kids. And they've canceled that. And a lot of towns are canceling their Purim celebrations. It's a shame. But you know what? Purim is a time that the Purim story essentially happened in Iran, Persia. And it was a time when all the Jews were put to death. Every Jew on this earth was sentenced to death by a guy named Haman. And of course, it didn't happen. But in the Purim story, God's name isn't mentioned once. Not one time. The story unfolds like you'd watch a movie play. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. But when you look back at the whole story, you see how every step was kind of orchestrated. You can see how they interrelated one step to the next, and you can see how God had his hand moving the chess pieces around. This is what's happening today with the coronavirus. This is what's happening with leaders of the world today. God doesn't come down to Trump or to Ayatollah Khomeini and say, do this, do that. He manipulates their situation so they end up doing what he wants in the end anyway. Just like Pharaoh when we came out of Egypt. Just like Ahasuerus when the Purim story unfolded. And he was the one that ended up sentencing the bad guy to hang. So what we see unfolding in the world is a part of what God has planned to happen and to get us to the time of the Messiah. So there's nothing to fear. And of course, the news agencies and governments, my own opinion, even though this is a very contagious virus, I think they're getting people panicked a little overly much, but of course they want people to take precautions. We have to take the precautions they tell us because it's good for us. Keep your hands washed with antiseptic soap. Don't touch hands with other people. If you yourself are going to sneeze or something, don't do it like we were taught, hoo-hoo, in the corner of the elbow. Take a piece of tissue paper and do it in that. Going in and out of doors, the best thing to do is use tissue paper, public bath or anything, because this virus evidently can live like 9 days once it's splattered on something. So just take your normal precautions, keep yourself clean, wash your hands and face. When you're out of your house, don't put your hands to your face. Don't touch an object. And then we touch our hand, unbelievable amount of times we touch our face every day. Simple precautions. The age group that is most vulnerable to this is people in their 70s and up, or people with fragile health or respiratory infections. Dora says bleach with water or Lysol, the surfaces. Yes. And stay away from big gatherings of people. Of course, they're canceling a lot of them now, but around the world, not just here. If you guys, I don't know if you get the news there, but flights in between countries on this side of the world are coming down to about nothing. Airplanes are being canceled, flights are being canceled. Here in Israel, they're turning people away from the borders to come from the high infected areas. They just won't let them in unless, if they're tourists, if they will agree to a 14-day self-imposed stay in your room for 14 days before you go touring, they'll do that. If they'll check them going in and check them coming out. But there are a lot of people that right now, there's almost 8,000 people here in Israel that are in this isolation in their own homes. They're not sick, they're just waiting to see if it's going to develop into something where they'll be contagious to people. So just use your common sense. That's all. Keep yourself clean. Absolutely. If you don't, even if you know somebody, I know it's hard, but you shouldn't be shaking. I mean, you shouldn't be shaking hands. Oh, look, here's what happened here in Israel. There were some tourists from Korea were here, South Korea. And every one of them checked out positive for the being contagious. This was just like 2 weeks ago, before they started doing all these other precautions. So they put them in a bus, isolated them, and waited for an airplane to come and put them on the airplane back to South Korea. But they published every place these people went to visit. And it turns out that other people were starting to get sick that had been at the same place at the same time. So be careful. I mean, look, you can go out to the grocery store and somebody in the grocery store could have talked to somebody from one of these countries or who was infected, and then you end up with it. So you got to just be a little bit careful right now. And you can always use Psalm 91 to help. I do it twice a day now. And let me tell you something. I saw a post on about 8,000 in quarantine, but it's in home quarantine, not in the hospital. Some lady put up, and she's Jewish. She says, we're not supposed to pray against what God's doing. And that's true. But there's one thing that, even if this is a judgment on the world for something, even if it's that, we are allowed to pray to God to soften his judgment. We can reverse decisions he makes. Stand up and know who you are. The human being is his most powerful creation. We're his children. And if we go to him, and we go to him in honesty, and we go to him in truth, then what he does is say, okay, all right, you had enough of a timeout, enough time in the corner. I'll do it. So Psalm 91 is a big one. If you look up on any of the websites that put in Psalms for healing, Chabad or Psalms for healing or protection, you'll get a list of Psalms you can recite. And understand that using the words of David, you yourself can't come up with any better words than David used. So you pray those Psalms, and they're not from David, they're from you. They're from your heart. God knows who's speaking to him. You can't fool him. He won't say, oh, David's talking to me again. He's going to say, oh, it's Pesach, or it's Thomas, or whoever. He knows who you are. He reads your heart. And those words that David used, you can't get more sincere or dedicated words to God. And that's why we have formalized prayer. Some very smart people over the centuries sat down and wrote the prayers that we use, and we say them together morning, afternoon, and night. We pray them together, or we pray them in our homes, and God knows who's talking to him. He's a pretty smart guy. He's not saying, why are you using the same old words? He is feeling your intent from your heart when you pray these words. And believe me, he's listening. So use those things to your advantage. Make your connection even stronger with God this way. It helps you cement how you feel inside, and it radiates to him, and he knows. The last thing in the world he wants to do is to hurt any of us, as long as we have a good connection with him. You know, people don't realize this, that when the Messiah comes, when that time comes, everybody in the world is going to be Israel. There's going to be no other way to talk to God. Whatever they believe, whatever idol they're praying to, whatever they think, whatever religion they're following, they all go poof. They are no more. Only what you guys are learning today and what you're knowing and your relationship with God, that's the way everybody's going to be. Everybody's going to be part of what we call the greater Israel. Not everybody's going to be Jewish, but everybody's going to be an Israelite. And this is an important thing to remember. And, you know, I used to talk to Christians, and I'd say to them, you know, you really ought to change what you're thinking about redemption and everything. And you know what they said to me? Well, we'll see when the time comes. We'll see who's right. And my, of course, answer is, no, you won't. Because you won't be around. You know, you guys are on the right direction. You know what you're doing. It's time for you to help other people. It's time for you to help other people come in this direction. The way you handle yourself every day, the way you interrelate with people, that's planting the seed. But to be able to help people understand there's nothing else but God. There's no reality but God. There's no religion out here. God never uses the word religion once in everything he talks. All he wants people to do is walk his way, to work with him, to walk with him. So it's important that we understand this. You guys understand it already, but we got to get this thing out to people. They got to know. And that's why when I talk to people, and I talk to Rabbi Shirky, and I talk to Rabbi Goldberg, and I'm talking to Dr. Schulman from Ask Noah, and I'm talking to other people, we have to show a united front. We have to show people that there's a unity in walking with God. You don't have to be part of a denomination. It's all together as one. Because God is one, and we're part of the oneness, so we are one with God also. Each and every one of us, and we're all one with each other. Each and every one of you guys, and myself, and everybody. So it's just, when we sit and say we have our own opinions, and sometimes I'll tell you, okay, this is my opinion, but my opinion doesn't mean much. what God teaches is what means something. But one of the things that you do not have to do is study day and night. You just have to be a decent human being. There's something circulating right now. Thomas got on it last week, and again, this week. It's up there about the laws and 215 things and whatever. It was published. Understand something. It was published back in 1967. It was a thesis for a doctorate degree from some guy, and he even put a letter out. He really didn't know, this was his thesis, but he's not saying that this is the way it should be. He actually put an apology letter out to the world. So, hello, Paul Dubois. Good to see you. Did I see him? He went away. Oh, there he is. Hey, Paul. When you go to the internet and you're going and look, one of our biggest problems today is everything's out there. You can Google anything. You can also get on that one subject you Google a whole lot of garbage information. There are people out there that think they know something and they got it. Their opinion supposedly means something. Yeah, I think it's this way and that way. So you got to check the source. Before you read the information, see who published it, when it was published. Was it published 20 years ago, 25 years ago? Are you going to a website that hasn't been updated in 12 years? There's a lot of websites out there like that, Noahide websites. Make sure you know who you're listening to, and don't even bother to read anything from a website or from anybody that isn't pretty much current, unless some of the Jewish sages, and double check where they are in the world, whoever it is. Always look at the about. And there's telltale things when you get into the about that you'll see there. You'll learn to recognize, oh, this guy's a missionary in disguise, or this guy is this, or this woman's that. Don't just accept what you read. Let me tell you something. All of Judaism and all of what God wants is based on ask a question. Don't blindly accept. Ask a question. But you also, once you get the answer of truth, you have to get rid of your opinion and say, okay, I accept the truth. You can't say, well, I think this way or I think that way. It's not allowed. If you're going to listen for the truth and you're going to get the truth, then accept the truth. It's okay to get rid of your opinion and accept truth. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So be careful when you're surfing the net. Be careful today when you go outside of your home places. Keep your house clean, keep yourself clean, keep your face clean, keep your hands clean. This is going to pass. This has happened. This is not the first time in history this has happened. This virus thing. It's a thing called the Spanish flu that happened back in the 1920s in the USA. A lady came from Spain or somewhere over there on a ship, got off the ship and infected all the USA. Tens of thousands of people died. Today, of course, medically, we know how to put up blocks in front of these things. But if you want to read the history of one of the times it happened, it's somewhere in 1920. It's called the Spanish flu, if I'm not mistaken. One more topic I wanted to cover before we just open things up. We learn and have learned from teachings of other religions, and probably the religion you were in, when you read something in the prophecies, or you read something in it's somewhere in the Tanakh, and it speaks to you. You say, wow, that's talking to me. Don't ever say it's about me. Don't ever say God's talking to me in these words. If Isaiah is is one of the prophecies in Isaiah you think fits you? It may, and it may be there for you to see it, but it's not God talking to you. All the prophecies, everything. Most of the Torah, when he's talking to Moses, he says, God said to Moses, and he told Moses to tell the children of Israel, the house of Jacob, somebody else, Aaron. Who he's talking to is told very explicitly in the Bible. Some of the prophecies that were given to different kings that the prophets brought to the kings, they were for those kings. They weren't for me. They weren't for you. Don't try to, and I know sometimes you read something and the words really, you feel it in your heart. You know that it's going to teach you something. It's good for you too. Correct. But don't think God nominated you to do a job if somebody hasn't told you, especially himself. And if the prophecy doesn't have your name in it, it's not for you. Okay. Yeah, hold on one sec. They're trying to get to the bottom of my cough and stuff. About 3 weeks ago, I woke up one bright morning and couldn't hear out of this ear. And it's still there. You can't hear, and there's this little singing noise, you know, beep, 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 or something like that in the ear. And I've been to 3 doctors. They can't figure out why. They said, you just got a bad cold. And they've given me medicines for it and all that. It has nothing to do with this virus thing. And so we're working on it. I have to go in 2 weeks. I have an appointment with some deep ear doctor or something. I don't know. There's nothing physically wrong. There's nothing. So anyway, so every once in a while I'm going to cough, and I apologize for it. I'm feeling great. Everything's cool. No fevers, nothing like that. So it has nothing to do with the coronavirus. So, all right. Anybody at this point in time want to say anything or have a question or something? We can talk about it. Oh boy.
Terry sent me a text early this morning. Terry, would you share that text you sent me on the commandments, on the no-hide commandments? You know what I'm talking about?
What I heard Dr. Shulman say, or Moshe Shulman say?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got it written down here. This morning I was trying to get a little bit of listening in when Dan was doing one of his interviews with Rabbi Moshe Shulman, and something caught my ear. He said, I went back and listened to it a couple of times. I thought it was really good. And I'm going to be paraphrasing a little bit of this, but the gist of it's almost word for word. He said, Hashem is the ultimate perfection. If he has commanded you to do something, it is for your perfection. If you add to it, it takes away from the commandment. And he gave the example of a Jew sitting in, commanded to eat and sit in the sukkah for 7 days during Sukkot. And he said, if the Jew decides, well, I want to do this an 8th day, and doing it, trying to get the blessing out of it, you just about erased. You've taken away from the blessing of actually doing what was commanded by adding to it. And that was the example he gave. He says, if we add to a commandment, we are saying, we know better than you, God. So, yeah, I thought that was really interesting because there's some stuff that I've got myself into, some bantering back and forth with a person wanting to push, certain things. And I kept saying, this is what the Torah says. This is what Hashem says. And he said, well, I have a brain. Well, then his last statement to me was, are you preparing for the Messiah? And I answered back, I said, no. I'm praying. I'm preparing myself for the heavenly court. The Messiah has nothing to do with my observance of the commandments.
That's a good answer, Jerry. Yeah, let me just interject one thing here. Although that he said this about Sukkot, understand that when you read the prophecies, Sukkot happens to be the one holiday that the whole world is commanded to present themselves before God. The representative of every nation must come before God on Sukkot, and they must present themselves at the temple when the temple is back. And those that don't will be punished like Egypt was, and they'll be withheld rain and things like that. So his statement is absolutely true, but we don't know if God's going to tell people to live in a hut in Jerusalem. There may not be enough hotel rooms up there. Who knows?
Well, no, he was just using the example of the Jew is given a command to do this, and if the Jew decides he wants to do more of the same commandment than what he was commanded,
no, that's true.
It was adding to it and taking away from the commandment. And he was just using it as an example.
Yes, it's a very good example. And so is the way the Jews keep Shabbat, same as the way the Jews are commanded to dress. He didn't if God didn't command you to do it, and when I say command you, it's very clear who he's commanding to do things. We can't say, well, I got a brain and this is what I want to do to please God. Always remember what happened to Nadav and Avihu, the two zealous young Cohens that were assistant high priests bringing the strange fire before God. They paid for it. And that's why it's in the Bible. We just talked about it. Less is best until told otherwise. Just do what you understand to do. Look, God doesn't punish people for not doing something that they don't know they're supposed to do. When they finally realize they're supposed to do it, he says, okay, good boy, Pesach. Now let's go to the next level. So Moshe Shulman is absolutely right on this. And Terry, we had this kind of a discussion about this past week about things like that. That don't read anything into anything. You know what? When you study to be a rabbi and a learned person in what we call the Shulchan Aruch, and you learn the intricacies of it, and you walk into somebody's home, another Jew who is also a follower of and wants to do all the best things. Sometimes you see them doing something that you know they're not supposed to do. Some little thing here or there. You're better off not saying anything to them. Because once you tell them it, they're responsible for it. So I'm going to say to them, now you're going to be responsible for this commandment of God. That doesn't mean someone that blasphemes God or someone that's really off the track and doing really stupid stuff. But you're better off just not mentioning anything. That person will eventually find out for themselves. God didn't send you there to castigate this person or to reprove this person on something simple. Now, if we're talking about weird, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. But you got to be careful when you're talking to somebody that's on the same road we're on. You can have discussions about things. You can say, this is an opinion, this is this is that. But you can't say, well, let's open the book here and let's read it right here. That's what a posek is for. That's what a rabbi that knows each and every area wherever he's talking about, that he is the one that's talking about it. I am studying all this. I don't ever want to be a posek. I don't ever want to be the guy that people can come to and say, is this right or is that right? I want to be the guy who says, what's your opinion? They can say to me, what's your opinion? I said, what I studied, this is my opinion. Choose what you want to do. But at Pesach, once you ask that person the question, you have to do what they tell you to do. You can't go hunting around for a rabbi to tell you something that agrees with your opinion. It's forbidden by God. Once you ask the question and it's answered from an authoritative source, you have the answer.
Pesach,
Go ahead, Terry. Yeah.
these are little nuggets that the Noahides need. They don't, so many are coming to the Torah and still using the way they were taught to study. They don't know that there's a Torah way of study that's been hammered out for, 3,400 years. And, a real good Jewish friend of mine that lives in New Jersey, his first language is Hebrew. He was born in Israel. He's actually an immigrant in the United States. I asked him the other day, I said, is there a source on proper Torah study? The things that I learned when I was studying under rabbis and things, and they were teaching me how to study Torah. And he said, there's not one. It's just one of these things that's passed down generation for generation. And that's just something that we, the Noahides, need to understand, is that there are things that we're going to be taught by the rabbis that's only come down through the generations, that are traditions. And that's hard. It's hard for a lot of people because they're anti-tradition. But they don't understand the true Torah tradition is there to protect us. And this is just a very weak area that I'm finding. And I don't know the answer to beefing it up. I was just blessed to study for 7 years for conversion, and I got a lot of this stuff during that time. And I forget that that's where I got it at. That a lot of people don't have that because they didn't study in the realm that I did. But Veronica's got her hand raised.
Go ahead, Veronica.
I was just wondering, what about like Noahides that don't necessarily have a specific rabbi that they follow, but they will listen to like 2 or 3, and sometimes it doesn't always match. The rabbis don't always necessarily match, and it can get confusing.
Oh, what a beautiful question, Veronica. I mean, that is an excellent question. Here's the thing, and this is going to be probably until the next generation, actually. There are no rabbis that studied to be rabbis for Noahides because there's nothing there that, if you go to a rabbi and you want to know about kosher food, to prepare it or not prepare it, or you want to go and say, okay, I got to do something special in my kitchen, or you want to go and want to know how to do a certain thing. There are rabbis that have studied it, and they can give you a great answer. Look, when I first moved up here to Sfat, and I wanted to make sure that our kitchen was really, really kosher, because I'd never done that before in my life. I had 3 sets of beautiful ceramic dishes, and everybody told me you can't kosher ceramic dishes. If they were used for anything unkosher, you can't kosher them. Get rid of them. Well, they'd already been sitting in a closet back at my other place before we moved up here for like 2 or 3 years. Hadn't used them. And I brought them up here, and another year goes by and haven't used them. And meanwhile, they're just sitting in a closet. We don't use them. We went out and bought all new dishes. And I was in a class, and the rabbi said something about ceramic dishes. You can't be kosher. And he says, but if you have nice china and things like that came down through the family, and you're worried about whether they're can be used to be kosher in your home, let them sit for a couple of years, pull them out and use them. Because it's okay by then, by just letting them sit. So here I am with these 3 complete sets of dishes that I hadn't used in like 3 or 4 years. I said, wow, yeah, we can use them. So there's all kinds of intricacies and all kinds of things like that. But this guy that I was talking to, he was an expert person on this type of, that was teaching the class. Other rabbis just told me throw them away when I asked them their opinion. I didn't ask for a posek. I didn't ask for a rabbinical decision. I just asked their opinions, which is a big difference. If you ask a rabbi for opinion, he's going to give you his opinion. But if you ask for a posek, a judgment, God tells us when I go and ask for a judgment, whatever the court says, that's what it is. I can't change it left or right. I have to do it. That's in Deuteronomy. So if you want somebody's opinion, ask for their opinion. Don't say, how am I supposed to do it? Unfortunately, we have rabbis that teach on the same subject different things when it comes to their Noahides. And we also have Noahides that would prefer to learn from someone who's not Jewish. They want to learn from, okay, this guy studied and he's been working under a couple of rabbis, and so I'll learn from that guy. You also have to be real careful that they're not injecting their own opinion and their own thoughts into it. There's a lot of groups out there like that. But Veronica, the point is that when you find a teacher that you like and you have a relationship with, and that you know that teacher is teaching others and they're not telling you to do anything that is not what you're supposed to do. In other words, they're just saying, here's the way you should do things, and they can relate it back to what it says in the Torah for you, not for a Jew, but for you. Most rabbis think about first the answer for the Jew. That's the first thing they think of, and they don't know how to explain anything else. But they'll tell you things. So it's up to you to find that person that you can have a relationship with that can help you on your walk. One of the worst things you can do is jump from one teacher to another teacher because you're going to get confused. Totally confused. I got confused on a lot of things with the Noahides as I was doing my research and going into it. And why did I get involved at all with Noahide teaching? You all know Shara, my wife, is a convert. She has 6 kids. And she was worried about salvation for her kids and their relationship with God. She was so upset. She says, they're not going to convert. They're not going to do all this stuff that it burned in my heart to do and become Jewish. They're not going to do that. They just want to live their lives. They just want to be good people. And all her kids are highly educated. They're all highly educated. They're all teachers. They all graduated and they're teachers and they're good people. And they were churchgoers. There's only one that's a churchgoer anymore. But we did research, and when we first ran across the Noahide stuff, we said, "Bah, somebody's creating something here. Because we ran into some bad Noahide teachers where we were trying to get information to help others. In the end, here we are talking to a bunch of people that we call right now Noahides because nobody wants, if you go out and say, I'm righteous to the nations, everybody says, what, are you stuck up or something? You know, what makes you righteous? So it puts a barrier between people. So the best thing to do is just say, okay, I'm a Noahide. But as I've heard, I once made this statement to my wife and she didn't accept it until she heard Tovia Singer say it. We're all from Noah. There's nobody on this planet that doesn't come from Noah. So we're all Noahites. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they weren't Jews, they were Noahites. In today's definition of the word. They got the title Jew retroactively. The first time it was used was around this month of Adar, during Haman's period. Those Jews from Judea, he says. So what I'm getting at here, Veronica, in answer to your question, is it takes a lot of willpower and a lot of confidence in yourself. It takes a lot of confidence in yourself to just say, okay, nobody's trying to make me smaller or put me down, but I myself have to make myself open myself up to what God wants me to understand. And if you keep constantly. Example, in 1996, I had had to have a stent put in. I don't know if you guys know what that is. Angioplast, I guess they call it. And when I first got the symptoms, I Googled it back in 1996. And I read what it said about the pains I had in my chest and all this kind of stuff. I said, oh my goodness, I'm dying. Oh, I got this. Oh, I got that. And I read everything, and then I Googled something else that it said about it, and it said something different. I Googled something else and it said something different. When I went to the expert at the hospitals, they said, let me forget Google, let me tell you what you got. Now, we do a joke amongst us here, the Jews, we do a joke. When somebody asks a question, somebody says, well, I don't know the answer, but go ask Rabbi Google. See what Rabbi Google says, or see what Dr. Google says. But we have to be, and you have within you, that part of you that God put in you that will somehow, and which everybody, maybe it's a little bit different, but when I hear something I know is truth, I feel the truth of it. I just feel it, and I accept it. And somebody tell me, oh, that's silly, what you think. What are people telling you today about your walk today? It's silly, but you know it's not. It's the truth. So now let's go inside Noahide and all the teachings. There's been some pretty stinking thinking out there. There's no way I can put it. And some people just grabbed right hold of it. And there's still people out there hanging on for it for dear life. This is what I think, and so I'm going to hang right on with this guy because this is what he thinks. Always be open to hearing the truth. Don't ever close yourself off to hearing the truth until you have made that direct connection with God. Then he's going to help you. He's going to, everything that comes into your head, everything you're going to read, everything that comes up on the internet, you're going to read 1 or 2 or 3 sentences and say, wait a minute, this is the wrong direction. I got to make a U-turn and go back someplace else. And believe me, your interior, your God radar will help you with that very much. And if you don't know, ask someone that does know to explain it to you. Then you can add to your knowledge of your godly soul part of you that wants to control the animal soul of you, which is going to buck and try to buck off the godly soul your whole life. The whole point of this, of what we're doing, is realizing inside of us, there's 2 parts of us. There's the animal part, which is 100% good. There's nothing wrong with the animal part. Keeps us alive, helps us fall in love, and tells us what we like to eat, what we don't like to eat, what we think. And then there's the godly part that says, well, yeah, okay, animal part, let's get together on this so we can make this person a better person. And I relate it to a cowboy on a bucking bronco. The godly soul hops up there and says, okay, let's go for a ride. And the animal soul says, no, we ain't doing nothing. And starts bucking around and giving you all the reasons not to listen to the godly soul. Eventually, if you keep at it, the godly soul tames, not conquers, tames the animal soul. So the animal soul then says to the godly soul, how come we're not doing anything today? How come you're not getting out of bed? Let's go pray. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. Just like a horse, once it's broken, and that's, I say that because you don't beat the horse, you just build a relationship with the horse. So when it wants, it'll come to you and say, hey, come on, let's go for a ride, instead of bucking you off. Why is it so hard for us to do this? We are born with the animal soul. It comes right out of the womb with us. Your body isn't ready for the godly soul until you get to a certain age. With women, it's usually 11, 12 years old. With boys, it's 13, 14 years old. What happens is, as The animal soul is total control until you get there. Then, as our hormones, as we go through puberty, as we get older, it puts us all together. And the animal soul, I mean, the godly soul, actually, when we say when a boy is bar mitzvah, you can actually feel the godly soul come into him on that day when he has a bar mitzvah. But it happens to all of us. Guys, I hate to say this, we're latecomers. A lot of the women, when they hit that age, wake up. They feel the spirituality. I talk to so many women, and I know so many women that, well, when I was 12 or 13 years old, I realized what I was over into was silliness. I had to get out of it. I've been searching since I was 11 or 12 years old. Guys don't do that. We'll go 40 years on the road and all of a sudden say, whoops, hey, look at this. We went the wrong way. The women have a very special connection with God. God has let's face it, God creates everything and he uses women to keep it going. Us guys, we're just, okay, we're there to take care of the women. The women have a very strong connection with God. Much stronger than men. That's why in some religions, the men tried to make the women subservient. Now, in the Jewish religion, the reason that men are out in front, we're the guys that got to do all the work. We got to clean the temple. We got to go pray 3 times a day. We got to do this. We got to do that. God says, go do this, go do this, go do this, go do this. Then you say, wait a minute, what about my wife? She's okay. She doesn't have to pray 3 times a day. Doesn't have to do the time-bound commandments because what is she doing? She has a new life in her. She's taking care of the kids. She's taking care of the sick. She's taking care of the weak. She's taking care of the old. And she's doing her job. Now you have to do all the things that support her job. And that's the way it's set up. And the men also, because we had the time to study and to do these things, so we carry on the teaching and the oral tradition and everything else, but it doesn't make the women lesser. Every one of the temples had study places for the women. They always had them. But they could do, they basically you'd find older women there when they didn't have the other responsibilities they had. So anyway, Veronica, I've gotten into all kinds of subjects answering your question, but you yourself have to decide which direction you're going in. But you always have to be open to questioning. Always question. Everything I've said here today, you guys got a different, think I've said something wrong? Question me, it's okay. Anybody that teaches, if they don't allow someone to question what they're saying, they're not a teacher. Teachers, a true teacher learns from every question someone asks them. You never stop learning. So if anybody has specific, also, you know what? And if I don't quite understand this, but people, some of the Noahites will tell me, well, I wanted to call you and ask you a question. I wanted to send you a message and ask you a question. We didn't want to bother you. Come on now. That's what we're here for. That's what a good leader, a good teacher is here. Do you know that I can call, there's 3 rabbis I can call 24/7, well, no, 24/6, and ask questions and talk to. It doesn't make any difference what time, day or night it is. This is what you guys got to do too. You got to realize it's okay to question. It's not okay to debate. It's okay to question. You don't try to change the mind of your teacher. You just get that person's opinion. And if you have questions about it, ask them. And if they brush you off or don't give you a good answer, I don't want to put anybody down, but I just don't communicate too much with people like that. Just don't do it. Because if I need a question answered, I want it answered. If I come to you as a person to ask that question, I'm expecting you to have some kind of answer for me. I respect you for that, whoever you are. Terry, you want to say something?
Yeah, there is no stupid questions. There's no questions that you may think, well, this may seem silly. There's my first teacher, Rabbi David Steinberg. He was in his 70s and like 2010 when it was teaching me Hebrew and different things. His wife, born and raised in Jerusalem. And when I first met him, I stayed a week. I went with a friend in New York, and that's how I met him. We stayed with him, and then he became really my first face-to-face teacher. While we were there, his wife's rabbi is in Jerusalem. It's where she grew up, where she was raised. She made a phone call to get she had a question. She had a kosher question. Now mind it, this lady born in Jerusalem, Orthodox from the start. And she's in her 70s. She's calling her rabbi and asking a kosher question about a tomato. To some of us, we might think that's kind of crazy. There's no crazy or stupid questions when it comes to observing the commandments that God's given us. And if you've got a question in that area, no matter how simple it seems to you, ask it.
Terry, that is an excellent point. I only got to correct you on one thing.
What?
There is a stupid question.
The one that's not asked.
There you go. Exactly right. The most stupid question in the world is the one you don't ask. If you're sitting in a classroom and someone's teaching, and you have a question that comes in your head and you don't want to ask it because you'll look stupid or something, or you think it's, probably everybody knows it and I'm just dumb for asking the question. Wait 10 minutes. Somebody there is going to ask the same question. It's going to happen. So you might as well ask it if nobody else has. And if you want to do it in private, ask the question in private. But don't ever think that you have a question that's not worth asking.
And somebody might have that same question but is afraid to ask.
Exactly. So always ask. Look, I know that you guys come from a background where they tell you don't ask questions, just accept. Have faith, just accept. Just accept what we're telling you. It's truth. How you doing, Richard? Be with you in 1 second. Understand something. Don't ever, okay, Devorah, don't ever not ask a question because you think it's a silly question or it's a stupid question. Our whole existence as Jews, we question everything. We got a question, we ask it. And we get an answer. Nobody's going to tell me, oh, what a stupid question that was. Nobody will ever say that. So, there we go. Richard, you want to say something?
Yeah. I have, as you can see, put up an Israeli flag. I hope there's no problem with that.
Why would there be a problem with an Israeli flag?
I'm just checking. I love Israel. I feel a part of it, and I try to do as much as I can for them. So I'm proud to display it. Just want to make sure that it's kosher.
Nothing. It's completely kosher. You know what isn't kosher? Since you asked the question, how many times have you seen people buy T-shirts that say, I am Israel? Putting on a T-shirt, don't get it done. I can spend $10 and get me a T-shirt that says, I'm Israel too, no matter who I am. That doesn't get anything done, wear a T-shirt, I'm Israel. What gets something done is having a relationship with the God of Israel. That makes you part of Israel, not a t-shirt. That, you know, I don't know, people, more and more people are coming to understand this. You don't have to, look, there's a great book out there if you really want to get into study and stuff called The Divine Code. Everybody knows it. Very shortly, there's going to be another book out there, and we're going to have it, and we'll let you know when it goes into hardback, which we're hoping is very soon. I think Terry's got a copy of it electronically, right, Terry?
I haven't done it. Actually, I'm waiting to buy the book.
Okay. No, you can't download it. Yeah, that's a good book, but there's another one coming out from Brit Olam that doesn't look like an encyclopedia, and it says things in a very short, simple way. Good explanations in a short, simple way. The basic stuff.
It's 6 o'clock.
Is it? Oh, it's 4 o'clock where I am in the morning. That must be
Sorry,
Richard.
that's my Mac talking.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, it must be you out there on the West Coast. It's 6 o'clock. Oh, by the way, you guys go into daylight savings time on the 8th, I believe,
Yes.
which is this coming weekend. Europe and Israel don't do it until the last weekend of the month, but our meetings will still be at 8 o'clock your time, whatever it is. It doesn't make any difference. But if you're contacting some in Israel, like Richard right now is 10 hours behind me, for about 20 days, he's going to be 9 hours. East Coast, instead of 7 hours, will be 6 hours. So I know it gets a little confusing, but at least it's only for 3 weeks. Israel used to wait until June to go to daylight savings time and get off it in September. And it would drive me crazy because I'd always have to be 2 clocks on the wall so I could tell what time it was wherever I had to talk to somebody. Anyway, enough of that. Veronica, you need, you got a follow-up question on what we talked about?
Well, it wasn't really necessarily about that. It was the I know that some of the Noahides are being trained to teach other Noahides.
Right.
But who is teaching rabbis about Noahides? Because is there like a central training thing, or if that makes kind of sense?
That makes perfect sense. Good question. There has been developed essentially two that I'm aware of that have what we call approbation or covered under the rabbis in Jerusalem. There are 2 places. There may be a third one that's going to be getting it soon, or maybe he's attached to one that already has it. Brit Olam is one of them. The other one is Ask Noah. I won't mention the others involved, but when you come to these central places out of Jerusalem, you're essentially coming into under that umbrella you're talking about. And there is no other place that can say that we've been doing it long enough that we understand. I mean, how does somebody become expert at anything? It's the years they spend learning, not teaching. They research all the sources. They've done the homework already. And then there are those that jump in and say, well, I read this book, or I read that book, and this is what I think, and that's what I think. And then people like that, it's tough. I don't want to say they're bad people. What I want to say is sometimes you get a wrong teaching. When it comes to anything that the rabbis learn, we have Ashkenazi and we have Sephardi. Don't want to get a whole bunch of stuff, but you have the Shulchan Aruch. We have it that Rabbi Weiner did for the Noahides, which is excellent work. He did a lot of research. But even in that book, there's some things that don't 100% agree with another Shulchan Aruch for the Noahides. there are differences there. But that's okay. There's always few differences there. Not to start a big argument or discussion, I'm going to tell you one of them. You guys, I think, are ready for this. There's this big thing about Shabbat and keeping Shabbat and how to do it. I'll get to you in a minute, Richard. And how to do it. In Rabbi Weiner's book, there's no way, shape, or form that a Noahide can do Shabbat. But when you go through and research through the years what sages have said, there is another opinion out there about Shabbat. That opinion says when a Noahide does the declaration in front of and becomes officially, you get a little certificate that you're a Noahide. You can get it from As Noah, you can get it from Brit Olam. But there is in one of the Shulchan Aruch books that says if the Noahide goes in front of a Bet Din, in other words, a court of Jewish judges, and asks them, may he celebrate Shabbat the way a Jew does, but they're going to try to dissuade him in every way, shape, or form. But if he vows he will in front of that court and in front of God, then it's not something you can go back on. You can't just decide, well, it's too hard for me. There is an option there, but I don't recommend it for anybody. I don't think people should do that aren't Jewish. People don't know what it means to keep Shabbat the way the Jews keep Shabbat.
Amen.
Look, let me see. I think I got it sitting right here. Let me see if it's here.
Do you have a set of the 39 Malachas?
What I got here, see this book? Whoop, The Laws of Shabbos. See how thick it is?
Mm-hmm.
This is one of 6 books you got to learn. Just one of 6 when you're Jewish. Most Jews never learn this stuff. They just go by what they were brought up in their Jewish homes to do on Shabbat or not do.
Yeah. That's what I was studying toward the end of my conversion was the 39 Malachas, which is a 4-volume set like that. And that was my goal as a Jew. They always say, master a mitzvah, learn it, to be able to teach it. And that's what was in my goal, was to be a teacher on the Shabbos law, because it's not taught. And it's very interesting. I'll be honest with you, today I have to fight not wanting to get into it, because I know it's not for me, but it was my first teacher was going over. We were studying some of it every night of the week, except for on the weekend, Friday, the weekend being Friday, Saturday, and pretty much Sunday as well. But it was like it was coming to me. It was just like, I've got notebooks full. I still have notebooks full. And it was just so easy for me to just pick up and understand when we were going through.
Let me just give an example of one of the goofy things, okay? Let's say something gets spilled on the floor. Somebody spills their milk. Somebody spills a soda that has color in it or something like that. You have to have designated rags that you use to clean it up. But you're not allowed to squeeze anything on Shabbat so that the water or the juice or anything comes back out of it. So when you throw the rag down and it absorbs, then you have to get a wooden spoon or a knife and lift that rag with that and carry it over and just put it in something until after Shabbat. It's just, you have no idea what really keeping Shabbat is. So when someone says they want to keep Shabbat, they just don't know what it means to keep Shabbat. Can a Noahide do Shabbat? Of course you can honor the Sabbath day. Of course you can. If you want to light candles on your table on Friday night, do it. You want to have a family dinner, do it. You don't have, but the one thing you don't want to say is God commanded me to do it. You're deciding to honor the Sabbath. You want to eat kosher food? You can do it, but there's no reason for it. It's not making you a better person. Maybe health-wise, but closer to God, these things don't make you closer to God. What makes people close to God is doing what he commanded you to do for who you are, period. Believe me, most of us Jews would prefer not to do a lot of things we got to do. Look, I live in Sfat. It's a Haredi, it's a religious town, but we have tourists that come through here. And in Sfat, there's maybe 6 restaurants or carryouts I can use, of all of them open, that have the rabbinical okay for me to use. Others have rabbinical okays that are much lower, so somebody knows a secular Jew that's not quite, doesn't keep all the laws, okay, I can eat there. But someone like me that is trying very hard to follow all the laws that I possibly can, I have to walk by some pretty neat restaurants. They look good inside, and they're say kosher, but they're not at the level that I have to keep, because that's where I am. So, and it doesn't make me any closer or further from God. It's just what I've decided, being a Jew, this is the path I'm on, which is called Haredi and Hasidic. There are those that aren't quite there, and there are those that are even further away, like Bernie Sanders. I'm not getting into politics. Anyway, it doesn't make you any closer to God to volunteer to do stuff that you don't need to do. It just makes your life a little more complicated. God made you to be who you are. He made you to be your heritage, to be who you are. And he expects you to live your life as who you are, but do the things that he wants every decent human being to do. That's all. Go ahead, Richard.
I just wanted to point out, am I muted? Yeah. I just wanted to point out in the text, Veronica asked a really good question.
If Noahides are being trained to teach, who is teaching rabbis about Noahides? What am I doing? I am reading everything that I possibly can through the centuries, through the millennia that our sages have written about dealing with people that aren't Jewish, what they're permitted to do, what they're not permitted to do. I'm gathering the information. I have it all here. I'm not a book writer, but I'm taking these courses now to become a rabbi, and you have to write essays about questions. I'm a bottom liner. I can answer those questions in one sentence instead of taking 25 minutes to write an essay about what the answer is and then down the end putting the answer. And this is what most people need. And this is my little, Shira and I fit in that little niche. Well, we're not going to drive you nuts with all the little d. We're just going to say, okay, this is the bottom line. This is what God wants from you. And if he didn't command you to eat kosher, you want to eat kosher, but it doesn't make you any closer to God. Why would people think it would do that? It's what makes us close to God is being a decent human being, fearing him, praying to him, have communication with him like you would with any other being. And just simply, he says, he's the king. He says, this is what I want you to do, A, B, C. You don't have to do anything else. You're a good person if you just do the ABC I gave you. Don't do what the other guy over there has to do, A through Z or something. Just do the ABC I gave you. And I love you, and you're going to be with me for eternity, and you have your entrance into the next level of life, and you don't have to do anything else. That's the whole point of what you guys are learning. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can live your life. You don't have to be afraid of offending God. You don't have to be afraid of punishment. There is no hell, but there certainly is everlasting life. The next level of life that we go to. And if you just do the simple things he tells you to do, look, let me tell you how simple God makes it. Anybody with any level of understanding of God and who he is, and recognizing and knowing him, and acts like a true, a proper human being, goes. Otherwise, what would happen to the people that were born with not quite the capability to understand a lot of things? What about someone, I don't want to mention any specific thing, how they were born, but they go through to the next level, just like we do. And in the next level, everybody's healed of everything that we're promised. There is no sickness, and there is no, he makes straight the bent. Those that their bodies on this earth don't work quite properly, they'll be fine in the next level. So what we do is who I am, Pesach, I have to get through this level of life, doing what he tells me to do. Unfortunately, I'm in the complicated section of the aisle, but I got to do it. And the next level of life is going to be easier. So don't impose things on yourself that aren't needed. It's only for you. It's not for him. Go ahead, Richard.
Recently in the news, there's a rabbi says he's been negotiating with Mashiach. I think until he reveals himself, he isn't Mashiach. But what have you heard?
I stick with God's teachings that he'll take care of the Messiah, and I got to take care of me. And we're living in the here and now. So right now, this minute, this second, this is what we got to deal with. And if we don't have to worry about what's going to happen next, because we already know, of course, the Messiah is going to come. And you know what? One of the things that isn't taught a whole lot is there's somebody that comes before the Messiah. His name is Elijah, Eliyahu. He comes, and the minute that he comes, something really fantastic is going to happen across the earth. The minute he comes, every Jew is going to know what tribe do they belong to. Today, we don't know. All the records are lost. Other countries and other religions burned our records, threw them away, did what they wanted with them. Only the Levites and the Kohanim know who they are. The rest of us have no idea what tribe we're from. We'll know instantly. We'll wake up in the morning and say, my goodness, I'm from Naphtali, or whatever you are. Plus, oh, wow, you ought to have, Martha, have them get a hold of me. Maybe if they come to Sfat, they can come have a Sabbath meal with us. Have them get a hold of us. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I lost my train of thought. Where was
Elijah.
I, Terry?
You were talking
Elijah, right, Elijah. When he comes, how are we going to know he's even here? Every human being on earth, if even those that don't think they're Jewish, are going to wake up in the morning, and if their family is Jewish, they're going to wake up and say, oh my goodness, I'm a Jew. Oh, I'm from the tribe of Dan. And those, like you guys, will know immediately that Elijah's been here and the Messiah is coming. The rest of the world, they won't believe it. But you guys will know it. And that has to happen first. That's in the prophecies. It has to happen first. So, yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Thomas had a question a while back.
Okay, Thomas, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, when you're talking about asking questions, I mean, I got a little bit of Christianity there when they forced me to go to that Lutheran school. But towards the end, I was asking questions. Well, there, you get told what you're supposed to believe. You don't ask questions. But most of my life, I was pagan. basically Celtic pagan, and the goddess Brigitte, which the Catholics renamed Bridget and made her a saint, and Coronis and that. But they always said to ask questions. It's weird how certain beliefs want to, how do I put it, tie you down?
Yeah. Well, they want to make you subservient.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, but where others, you know, even though I was wrong for all them years, very wrong. Thankfully, I'm on the right track now. But I think that's part of the reason I went the other way, was because, well, I didn't know anything about 7 laws and stuff back then. I was only like 14 years old. But the paganism opened up and had how do you put it, a kind heart, even though that there was evilness, and that's a whole different long story. But questioning, it's just, you're right, there's only one stupid question we're not asking, but other than that, any question. I mean, even what color is a banana? That's not a dumb question.
No.
It's orange, right? But I just wanted to say that because it just makes me feel at ease that I know, I mean, I'm lucky enough to know you guys that I can just ask a question when I need to.
Sure.
And it makes me feel good that I can do that.
Very good, Thomas. Thank you. Terry, you had something else you want to say?
No, I just wanted to make sure Thomas got to speak because he did have his hand raised.
Yeah, I don't. Sometimes I miss it. So you gotta. Oh, I see you put it in there. I get talking. I'm just looking here. I'm not looking at the side.
That's all right. I'm trying to help you out.
Okay. Now, the different organizations have different ways of teaching, and this came up yesterday in a meeting I was in with Rabbi Shirky about the pledge that they ask people to read and sign. And he explained to me, he says, look, a lot of people want to do things, and they're always saying tomorrow. I'm going to start my diet tomorrow. I'm going to start reading this book tomorrow. I'm going to start doing this tomorrow. I'm going to start doing that tomorrow. The only way people will actually go forward sometimes is if they make some type of commitment to themselves to go forward. Example, there's a I guess it's like a diet or training yourself to eat a different way. It's called Bright Lines. It's called Bright Lines. And they give people a little information, but then they ask you to make a commitment if you're going to do this, because they know it's hard to do, to re-educate yourself to eat in the proper way. They make people pay to learn. And I know it's a big deal with some of the women here in SPOT that do it, but once you pay, you've made a commitment. And then you get their diets, you get everything, and you make your own food, whatever. But Shira's been on it. And when she goes on it, the cooking in the house changes. I eat more salads, I eat more healthy stuff, and I actually lose weight at the same time she's taking care of hers. But it changes the way we were talking about dinner tonight. We had a little piece of grilled salmon and a huge salad, and some stuff in salads you usually don't put in. But anyway, and it was delicious. And she says, you see, when you're hungry, whatever you eat is delicious. If you're just eating to eat, then you say, well, I'm going to have some potato chips, or I'm going to have a donut, or I'm going to have this, or I'm going to have that. But when you're hungry, you sit down and eat a meal, whatever somebody puts in front of you, you're going to say, hey, it's delicious. It's a retraining of up here. And this is what you guys are going through now. But in order to do it, you have to throw out some stuff. Just like in the food thing. Shira has completely gotten off sugar, completely gotten off refined flours and stuff like that. And it's hard. It's really hard. I see how it's hard for her. I'm not going to do that. I like my cinnamon rolls and my carrot cake, so I'm not going off. I'll eat a whole lot less of it, so that's good for me. Yeah, you're looking good there, Thomas, losing some weight. So there you go. I eat when I'm hungry, but problem is I'm often hungry. Now I'm a grazer. If I go through the pasture, the kitchen, I'm going to reach out and grab something and eat it, no matter what time of day or night it is. I've hardly got my eyes open. I'm walking through the kitchen because I have to go through there to get to our restroom. And on the way back, flip on the light, open the refrigerator, grab 2 pieces of bread, and take whatever can go between them, and I eat it. And I'm half asleep. That's just silly. But I've tried to kick the habit, so what I try to do is not eat in the evenings. So, because I know in the middle of the night I'm going to grab a sandwich. It's just, I'm like, where's the bread? Half asleep. Excuse me, hold on a second.
Oh. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Hilario has his hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, that was it's Hilario. Yeah.
Hilario, okay.
Yeah, add the Spanish twang to it, and you got it. But my question was, I was wondering about the 13 attributes. I know that Jews, when they're praying and talking on that said, what about, like, a non-Jew that's because I've read different things from the Noahide, just like Noahide pamphlets and stuff like that. That doesn't have that mentioned in there. But I was just wondering, like, is that what do y'all think about that?
The
Like
13 attributes of God?
Yeah, like if whenever you have right, like could a non-Jew say those whenever he's repenting, I guess, or like say that while he or she is praying?
Yeah, I guess you could. Is there a reason for it? No. But if you know the 13 attributes of God, what is the one thing that God wants from every human being? He wants us to know who he is.
Right.
So we need to know here's his 13 attributes. A lot of the stuff in the Jewish prayers that we pray every day is relearning every morning and every afternoon, every evening, reinforcing in here our head. That's all it's doing. It's keeping us on a track like this. Look, God created the Jew to be the teacher, and he calls us, we're separated from all other nations, he calls us the priests of the world. So we have to remember stuff a lot more. We can't, sometimes you got to be reminded of it a few times a day because our thoughts take us in other directions. If you want to call out to God and say, yes, I know your 13 attributes, that's good.
Okay.
That's like saying to me, Paul, Pesach, I know who you are. And my English name is Paul. But, it's the same thing. You're recognizing and knowing the one true God. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead, Terry.
Okay.
On those 13 attributes, a good way for us as Noahites to look at this is that we are all created in the image of Hashem. And so those attributes are essentially within us as well. And we can look at his attributes, and this is not talked a lot about in the Noahide circles, and I hope to eventually be bringing up some of this issue, and that's in the Hebrew it's called mido. They're working on our character traits. Well, working on these 13 attributes that were created in the image of, and using them to help us to grow as human beings. Long suffering. I mean, you can name the attributes, and once you start naming them and looking at how you can, work on those attributes as your attributes. How far am I off there, Pesach?
Not one bit. We're created in his image, and that means we have the same, we're supposed to operate the same way he does. It's the truth. It's what our attributes are supposed to be. That's what we all try to be.
Right. So you could take these 13 attributes and you can pray them in your way of, like Pesach is saying, is we know you are this, and then look back at yourself and say, okay, I'm created in this. How can I improve in this area? Long suffering and all those attributes are a part of us, and we could use those as tools to work on ourselves.
I just got to put in one comment. When you say long suffering,
that's just the one that's coming to my mind.
Okay, but wait a minute. Suffering is a trigger word. As soon as you say long suffering, people that came out of Christianity, what do they think of?
That's true.
Suffering. What it simply means is that he will he puts up with our stupidity, and he's patient with us.
How about loving kindness? That's a good one.
Yeah.
We really need to work on.
There you go. He doesn't suffer. He's patient with us.
Well,
back in Old English, it was that I'll suffer you to do that, which is okay. I'll be patient with you. But today we don't use that.
Well, there you go. We're learning to put up with those others that seem to be testing us.
There you go.
You're always saying, our fellow is our mirror. And so if our fellow is suffering us, then maybe there's something that we need to learn.
Right. There you go.
I stress to the Noahides I meet that God, besides the 7, also wants us to be compassionate, merciful, and kind.
Right. Exactly right.
Hold on, Chrissy. I got to put on my eyeballs.
What did you say? Harvest happiness?
Harvest happiness. There you go. Very good. Is that from that new book that what's his name? I can't remember his name now. The kid book. Anyway, guys, each of you is expected to exhibit the same attributes as our Creator, because we're in His image. That's what it means, created in His image, by the way. Doesn't mean physical at all. And each of us have one or two or more of those attributes that we have to work on very hard. Being patient with people, being loving to everybody, cultivate kindness. Beautiful. So those 13 attributes that you brought up, Hilario, are excellent point. But we have to apply them to ourselves.
Okay. That was all great. I really appreciate the answer.
Okay, well, let me tell you something that we forget. God created us in His image. That means we're the most powerful of all of His creations. He gave us the ability to think. He gave us the ability to make decisions. He says, look, children, this is how I want you to go, but you got to choose. It has to be by your free choice. And how do you do it by your free choice? Follow His attributes. And we learn. Each one of us has, and boy, some of us have some attributes we really got to work on. patience, all the things that loving everybody. Part of a Jewish prayer in the morning, besides the Modeh Ani, I'm thankful to you, and everybody should pray that every morning when they wake up, that you're reconnecting with God. Everybody should pray that. The Shema, just the first two lines of the Shema, should be said twice a day by everybody, morning and evening. And these are decisions made by sages centuries ago. Centuries ago, in the last 2,000 years, they say do this. This is what makes a person a complete a human being. Reconnect with God every morning, say the Shema, and there's one other thing that should be said. God, I commit to you today to love my neighbors and myself. Treat everybody with dignity, everybody with kindness, everybody with compassion, because that's what God does.
Right. Larry, where I really get a lot of that when I was talking about the attributes, I've got some books, you can get some Jewish books that goes through the attributes, and it talks about the attribute of God himself at first, and then it brings in how it applies to us using how we take that same attribute and use it in life. And that's where I'm getting that from. I'm not getting it from myself. I've learned that from teachers. I got one book that was written like 400 or 500 years ago by a Jewish rabbi talking about the 13 attributes, and he teaches what it is with Hashem, and then how we apply that attribute in our life. And so it's really good to think about them like that. You can use them in prayer and study and in your walk with Hashem.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to get a hold of some of those, if you wouldn't mind, just so that I can work on collecting some of those.
Okay. Pesach, you mind
Is
if I
there,
show the one I got? You think it'll be it's hold on just a second right here.
Yeah, the best thing, Hilario, are you on Facebook?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Why don't you make friends with Terry on Facebook, and then you can just ask him for the stuff, and you can just send him to you in a message or something. Yeah.
Yeah, because some of these are.
Yes, sir.
Some of these are kind of advanced, but I know you don't know me, but I've been studying the Hebrew scriptures for about over 12 years now. Majority of that was for conversion, and that's where I learned a lot of this from, was when I was doing some intense studying for Orthodox Jewish conversion.
All right. I recommend
Okay.
anybody that has specific questions that you would like some special teaching or learn special niche that you really want to learn about, make friends with Terry, make friends with Scotty, make friends with me, and do it through Messenger, where you can get the proper attention and it can be directed right at you, and we don't have time constraints like we have with the meetings.
Well, it could also lead into some good classes.
That's different. You can bring questions, absolutely. But we're really not trying to do whole teachings of subjects now. That's coming.
But that's true.
That's coming. We just I got to make a commitment to get up earlier in the morning or something. I don't know. more mornings early. So, yes, Veronica, you were taught wrong. You were absolutely taught wrong. The first two lines of Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Kavod Hashem Kavodo, that is for everybody. That's for every creature, everybody that can speak on the earth. This is the unity of the whole world. You may say the Shema, and it's recommended you do it twice a day. there was a letter written to one of the sages named Chida, was his nickname, and I don't remember his name offhand. We give nicknames to everybody instead of using their whole names. So when you say the Rebbe, we know who he is. We say the Chida, we know who he is. When we say Rambam, we know that's Maimonides. So the Chida got a question from a Gentile back, I think it was the 13 or 1400s, maybe the 1500s. He got a question, and the question was this: can I, as a non-Jew, may I honor God with the Shema? And he says, of course, not only once a day, twice a day. Everybody should say it. That was his answer. It's in writing. We have it in this letter that he wrote. And he's not the only one that have said it over the years. Now, today, you find some rabbis that teach this erroneously, that you can't say it. Yeah, I got to find it in English. You got it there, Terry?
For what? What?
The Shema, the first two lines of the Shema. Let me
Yeah,
see if I can. Say it in English.
I don't like part of the English, but it's I prefer the Hebrew.
Okay.
I just don't like the word Lord, but it's generally translated as "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." And so, to answer you, Veronica, I'll be honest with you. This was one of the things that I had to learn myself. But when I sat down, and like I said, I love the Hebrew, and I started looking at the Hebrew, Shema Yisrael Hashem, Eloheinu our God, Eloheinu Echad, he's one. Eloheinu opened it up. It's Hashem our God. Hear Israel. We're speaking to Israel. Hear Israel. Hashem is our God. That's the way when I say it, that's what it means to me. And he's one.
Now, let me tell you why they think everybody should say it. Here's the reasoning behind it. First of all, the name Elohim, I'm not allowed to say the name.
I know.
Yeah, okay. That is what we call the Gevurah, or the nature side of God. That's what makes everything work. The trees grow, everything. The Jews call him Hashem. So this is God saying, listen, Israel, me, Hashem, I'm one with everybody in the world. I'm the same guy that is one with the whole world. And we're supposed to teach the world that. So when these two pieces come together, and a Jew says, Shema Yisrael Adonai Elokeinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Elokeinu. God is saying, listen, Israel, me, your God, I am one with everybody. And when the Messiah comes, that's what happens. Everything becomes one. We're united with God again. We were once there. We just don't remember it. That's where our God part comes from in us. This is a declaration for the whole world.
And the second line, Martha was asking too, is the second line, if I'm understanding what you were saying, what I say when I say Shema, I say the first line that we just discussed. The second line in the Hebrew is Baruch Shem Kavod Makuso Le'olam Va'ed. Blessed is the name of your glorious kingdom forever and ever. And that's part of the Shema that's said when you're in the synagogue in undertone. But I put those two together as my statement to Hashem.
Now, what the rabbis are referring to is the next three paragraphs that come from Deuteronomy and whatever. This is where it says, there are instructions to the Jews within those next 3 paragraphs, and we recite them.
Mhm.
In thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your might, and all your soul. Yes. But then it gets into instructions on the Jews how they're supposed to do some things. They're commandments to the Jews. They're not to the whole world. So we say that every day to remind ourselves about these things. But the first 2 lines for everybody. Don't be afraid to say them. Don't be afraid to say. Do you have a prayer book in front of you, Terry? I don't have one in this
No.
room. Okay.
What are you looking for?
Moedeani.
Oh, that one I don't. Hold on.
When you wake up in the morning, there's a very
Okay, for weekdays. All right. You want Moedani?
yeah.
Okay, hold on. It's my interlineal, so I have to. It's spread out a little bit here. Oops, too far.
Okay, that's all right. Let me
Should be upon rising.
Yeah, when you rise.
Hold on. Okay, yeah, upon rising, right here I have it. What you need?
Yeah, I got it in front of me too. I've got it on Google. Rabbi Google. What the words are in English are real simple. When you wake up in the morning, before you start thinking of all the things you got to do all day long and all the bills you got to pay and the laundry you got to do and everything else, before that, at that instant when you're coming awake, it is hard to train yourself to do this, by the way. It was very hard for me to do it. I give thanks before you, King, living and eternal, for you have returned within me my soul with compassion. Abundant is your faithfulness. When it says abundant is your faithfulness, you're thanking him for his faithfulness in you, not your thankfulness in him. Let me read this again. I give thanks before you, living King and eternal one, for you have returned within me my soul with compassion. Abundant is your faithfulness. Say that when you put a piece of paper with it beside your bed. So when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is put it beside your alarm clock so you see it. Reconnect every morning with yourself to God. And sometime during the morning, say the Shema, and sometime in the evening, say the Shema, twice a day. So you're recognizing him as God, and you realize that we are all one. All of us are a part of him. These little tiny steps are more important than anything else you could possibly try to do. Because all of you are already doing most of what he wants done anyway. You're all good people. You're not persecuting anybody. You're not killing anybody. You're not stealing from anybody. You're not being unfaithful to any human being. Now's the time to stop being unfaithful to him. We don't think about it that way, but guess what? That's what it is. We don't know and understand who he is. We're being unfaithful to him. He calls us in the prophecies and even in some of the Proverbs, there's that evil lady standing on the street corner waiting for everybody. That's the evil part. In some places, Israel, he actually calls a prostitute. He even says to Israel, sometimes you open your legs to everybody that comes by and you're my wife. He really beats us up sometimes because we're bad people, but guess what? He said something to the whole world. As long as the stars shine, as long as the world exists, as long as there's anything, Jews remain. Israel remains. Israel will never be destroyed. You want to be part of that? Get on board. It's your choice. Have that eternal relationship with him. But don't get so confused that you think that you got to do extra stuff than what he's telling you.
Right. You know, a good thing to meditate on, you know, the last 2 words that he was talking about of this morning prayer is you know, Rabba and Munatecha. When you think of when it says abundant is your faithfulness, and Munatecha.
Not yours, but his.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I was wanting to get into. And Munatecha is Hashem's faith. Great is Hashem's faith. And this is something that, you know, when I was first learning Hebrew, and I looked at this word, and I thought, we're always talking about our faith, but this word is talking about the faith that Hashem has, and that's something to think about. The faith that Hashem has in His creation, you know. And to be thinking about, you know, you're thanking Him for returning your soul back to you with compassion. Great is His faithfulness, but you're saying great is the faith that Hashem has. His
In
faith.
us, in you.
Yeah, and it's something to think about. Is the faith of God, not just your faith, but the faith of God.
You wouldn't have been created if He didn't have faith in you, that you were going to do what He wanted you to do. Faith here is an action word. Action word. He's taking care of you. He's doing everything for you, and He's put that soul back in you for another day. That's His faith in you, because He knows you're going to do right. It's not something unseen. It's not He's not trying to tell you believe something that you can't prove. Nothing. He just as we are faithful to Him, which means the word emunah it's a verb. And it doesn't ask us to believe something that we don't know or we can't see or we can't touch. All you have to do is look around you and you see God everywhere. And it's just an amazing, at the very beginning, I mentioned about the story of Purim, where God isn't mentioned once in the whole scroll of Esther. He wants us to look at that and see natural events unfolding, because that whole thing took over 10 years, by the way. Most people don't know that. But it was like a script for a play. Like somebody sat down and just wrote a script, and this happened, and because this happened over there. When you look at it, you say, well, wait a minute. This couldn't have been just circumstance. This had to have a director. Well, who's a director? We know who the director is. But David just put in here, the way I see it is ex-Christians think that they have to do extra things, commandments, so God will love them. And it's simply not true. And you're absolutely right, David. All God expects of you is to do what He wants you to do, period. You don't have to take on anything extra. You don't get any extra credit for it. It doesn't make you any more righteous or holy. The very thing that makes you a righteous of the nations is just doing the steps that God asks you to do for who you are. If I tried to go into the Holy of Holies as an Israelite and get before God and do this incense, what would happen to me? Exactly what happened to Nadav and Avihu. Zap, zap. I didn't ask you to do that. What are you doing it for? Go do what I told you to do.
You know, we're talking about the faithfulness of God, doing what you're commanded to do. Let's look at the creation in Genesis 8:22. Since this verse opened up to me, and this is our duty as Noah's duties of the earth, continuously all the days of the earth, seed time, harvest, cold, heat, summer, winter, day, night, shall not cease. Think of this. As the sun comes up and goes down, of course, that's the earth rotating. But just if we look at it, God wants the sun to come up in the mornings and go down in the evenings. The sun is doing, and the earth and its relationship with the sun is doing what God said for it to do. What if the sun decided I wanted to do something else? That's going to interfere with its coming up and going down, and the earth rotating the way it's supposed to and tilting for the seasons. The earth and the sun is in relationship to one another in exactly what God told them to do. If they choose to do anything any different, it's going to make a major impact on what he told them to do. I mean,
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Look, what would happen if an elephant decided it was going to be a swan? What would happen if a giraffe decided, I'm not going to eat from the tops of the trees, I'm going to eat from the bottoms of the trees? Then the gazelle and the elk and the others that eat from the bottoms of the trees wouldn't have any food. God designed the giraffe to eat from the top of the tree. He designed the elephant to eat from the middle of the tree and actually to break off old branches and so for new growth to come. The elephant might decide, well, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to eat from the bottom of the tree. It would destroy the food for everybody. The giraffe would destroy the food for everybody if it decided to eat from the bottom instead of the top and keeping the trees trimmed off and new growth at the top. Everything, but everything is created to do a job for God. It's pure and simple. You want to really know? How about the simple little honeybee? It's created to pollinate the earth. In China, years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago, they started using human beings to pollinate the apple orchards because they didn't have enough bees because the bees were dying off. Someone has to do their job if they're not there, but we should have taken care of the earth so the bees wouldn't die off. Everything has its job and is supposed to do what it's supposed to do.
yeah, it's strange because it's like I was watching it's been a couple years ago, a nature show. I don't remember what plant and what fruit and what country it was in, but there's a specific kind of, I want to say like an apple or a pear, peach, some kind of fruit like that. I think it's more like a peach, that wasp actually builds its nest on the inside of that fruit. And if the wasp does not do that, the fruit will not ripen and be ready to eat. The wasp and the fruit has to work together for the tree to even produce fruit. And I found that really interesting with this. And when it's ready for the fruit, the wasp will actually leave. It leaves the fruit, but it takes this wasp actually living inside of this fruit and raising its larvae for this fruit to even exist. If the wasp doesn't come in, it will not blossom and it will just die off. I thought that was really interesting. I had never heard of that before, but it's in another country. It's a rare kind of fruit. It's in another country.
Everything is interrelated.
Yeah.
Everything is interrelated. Everything that God did, there's a reason for it. Nothing is created without a reason, not even a gnat. A gnat that flies into your mouth or gets in your eye, the gnat is only doing what God told it to do. It can't decide to do anything else. We are the ones, and look, we're the ones. I have a light. I'm giving it to you here. Light your candle off of it. And there are right now, 10 people in the room. We got 10 lights shining in here. And when you go out on the street, you're bringing light out into the darkness. You don't have to beat up the darkness. You don't have to chase it away. You just have to carry your light and it pushes it away. It's automatic. God is light. You know, we're told that when we go to the next life, there is no day and night. It's just light all the time. I think about that all the time. When are you going to sleep? Well, maybe you don't need to sleep. I don't know. But I sure hope there's food on the other side. I hate to give that up. But being serious, the most important thing for you as an individual is not what your next door neighbor's doing, but what you are doing to maintain your friendship and relationship with God, so that you go from this passageway, this what we're in now, it's just like coming down out of the womb down and coming out into the daylight. And the fetus the baby coming out didn't know there was anything out. So it's just important. Okay, Richard.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So I know we're coming up to 2 hours here. It happens every week, and that sure says to me, "Why don't you just do the hour?" I said, "Well, yeah, okay, but it ends up 2 hours every week." I don't even think anybody watches the whole thing on the video, but we just have to do what we're supposed to do for God, just like all the rest of His creation. He doesn't ask a rose to be a sunflower. And anything you do voluntarily that makes you feel better about your relationship with God doesn't make you any closer to Him. Do you know, and when you go into the workforce and you get a job and the boss tells you, "Here's what I want you to do," and you notice somebody else isn't quite doing their job, so you do that. And you go to the boss and says, "Look what I did, because I saw it needed to be done." He's going to say, "But that's not your job. Just do your job. If the other person can't do theirs, that's between me and that person." It's like a friendship. You're not friends with not one human being on this earth. And I mean a friend. I don't mean just know them as an acquaintance. You don't have a friend with one person on this earth that you don't work on that friendship every single day. You want to have your relationship with God, you work on it every single day. And if you can, 24 hours a day. In other words, even while you're asleep and while you're awake, you're dedicated to Him. So you can be righteous by doing these things. There's a difference between righteousness and holiness. We're not going to get into it now. Terry, if you remind me next week, we'll talk about righteousness and holiness. I'll write it down and try to remember. There's a huge difference between the two. But you can be righteous before God, and that's what He wants you to be. That's why when I talk to people, I try to get everybody focused together, not denominated. I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to go that way, and I'm going to go another way. And this is why I try to bring people together. I will never say to you, go over here and listen to this guy, go over here and listen to that guy, don't listen to that guy. You have to find that out for yourself. The important thing is that it has to help you have a better relationship with God. There isn't anything more important in your life. And how do we do it? Exactly what Terry said earlier. We're created in His image, so we make sure that we're acting like Him where we can in our midot, in our attributes, what we do every day. So, guys, I know we're way over time here, and I'm gonna, unless somebody else has other questions, we're gonna kind of wind it down. Work on your relationship with God. Not what you think it is, but look at what He wants from you. And you don't have to add or subtract anything from who you are. He created you as a good person. He created you as a person He loves and has compassion on. All He wants you to do is have love and compassion on everybody else. And of course, we know, because it's logic, it's in our DNA, what the don'ts are. We all know it. Everybody knows the same exact do's and don'ts. Some of us follow it, some of us don't. It's inside of us. Our brains tell us, our heart tells us, our God part of us tells us. Don't do anything that God didn't tell you to do. And if he wants you to keep Sabbath like a Jew, don't. All I can do is laugh because it's tough. And somebody says, "Well, I keep Sabbath." I say, "Oh yeah, really? Okay."
I have the same sentiment.
But if he wants you to keep a certain holiday, like Sukkot, we know is for the whole world, and it'll come in the time of the Messiah. You want to be an observer for Passover. You want to be an observer for other things. Do it, but God's not asking you to do it. He told us we have to do it, and he gave us a reason for it. Don't feel bad that you don't have to do it. Believe me, as the community grows and as more and more things happen, it's going to be amazing. You're allowed to celebrate all your national holidays, whatever country you live in. I'm talking about non-religious holidays like Independence Day, Thanksgiving Day, things like that. And I believe you need to add one more holiday, and that's the 27th of the month of Cheshvan, and it's different on the Christian calendar every year because we go by the Hebrew calendar. That's the day that Noah stepped out of the ark. That's the day when your history started. That's the day when those of us on this side of the flood, all of our history started. It's the day of creation for us. God recreated the world after the flood. This is how the Jews think. And that is the first day of creation of the second creation. God got rid of the first one for his reasons. And he's promised he'll never do what he did again. So it's up to us to carry the ball and get it right this time. And the sooner we get it right, the sooner the Messiah comes. We'll get into all that next week with what we have to do so God will come back down and be with us here on earth. We chased him away. We got to bring him back. He could come back, but that's not what he wants. He wants an invitation. And that's what you're doing. You're laying out the invitation for him to come back and be with us. Chrissy, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your videos. We appreciate that very much.
Yes.
And we are going to get out of here. David, it's good to see you. Emuela, Martha, Veronica, Chrissy, Scotty, Terry, Paul, all those that have left already. God bless you guys. And don't forget, ask the questions. If you're not friends with me or with Terry or Scotty on Facebook, go ahead. Terry and Scotty, I trust very much to give the proper answers. And they, by the way, the certificates are coming through very soon, but they've been certified as teachers from Brit Olam. So we're really, really great about it. We're happy about it. And we're going to use them. We're going to build more teachers. So maybe where you are in your area, you can then help out too. God bless you guys.
Bye-bye.